Isaac Marion, author of Warm Bodies. So, first off, what I want to do is I want to just say congratulations. I think I'm congratulating you on the success of the movie, which was #1 last week at the box office. And I was wondering, how much ownership do you take of the movie? Since, after all, you weren't the filmmaker, but you were the inspiration for it. How much pride do you take, say, in how successful the movies turned out?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because people tell me I love the movie, and my initial reaction is to say thanks, but I'm like, wait, I didn't make the movie. It's not really my thing. It's kind of a weird combination. I mean, in a way, it's their project, and I'm happy that it turned out well, but it doesn't totally feel like my thing, but it is based on my thing. So I don't know. It's kind of a complex emotion.
Did you find yourself rooting for it in terms of box office receipts and all when it opened, hoping it got good reviews?
Definitely. I mean, first of all, just because I actually really like the movie and think that it deserves to do well, but also, obviously, the more people see the movie, I don't get cut of the box office or anything, but the more people see it, the more people know about the book, because it says in the opening credits based on the novel. So that's the part that I'm happy about.
So I'm curious about. I have not read the book. A number of people here have. I fully intend to, especially now that I've seen the movie. What have I missed by not reading the book?
Well, the movie is like, which is the case with most movie adaptations, kind of like the cliff notes of the book. It gives you the basic dramatic beats, but they lose all the layers and kind of subtleties and themes that are developed more in the book. So it works as that distillation of it, but it's kind of like a snapshot of what's really going on in the book. So the book's a bit more serious. It still has a lot of comedy in it, but it's not a comedy, and kind of has a little more development of like some of the themes in it.
So let's, in case some people might be watching this interview and haven't seen the movie or read the book yet, let's back up a bit and sort of. What's your distillation of what the book and or the movie is about? I mean, what's your basic premise, and how did you come up with that? Because you mentioned it's a dumb idea. It's not a dumb idea, but it's kind of a crazy idea.
Yeah, maybe dumb isn't. Well, maybe dumb is the right word. It's definitely a goofy idea.
Okay.
And when you hear the premise, you would probably assume that it's going to be a screwball comedy or something. You wouldn't think like, oh, that's going to be a philosophical drama about existential crises, and which is kind of what it is, with a lot of ridiculous moments too. But
So what is the premise?
The premise is that the narrator is a zombie who is living in the traditional zombie apocalypse universe where everything, civilization is gone and everything, and he's sort of just wandering around this abandoned airport with this vague idea that he'd like to be something more than that. He doesn't really have any way to communicate or connect to the world, but he has this desire to be more, and then he sort of develops this through this very odd, very awkward relationship with one of his almost victims, who he decides at the last minute not to kill, and she kind of inspires him to learn how to be human again.
And one of the things, I hope this is not giving too much away, one of the, what's nice about it is you take the zombie, the sort of the traditions of the zombie, and you add a few little wrinkles, and one of the best wrinkles, I think, and actually allows for the novel and the movie to have more depth than otherwise, is the fact that they're allowed to, even though they have no memories, they're allowed to take on others' memories by eating the brains of their victims. Now, is that something that you came up with out of whole cloth, or is there some kind of line in zombie tradition that actually allows for that?
Apparently, I did make that up. I assumed that was kind of the standard lore, and I assumed, and I hadn't seen it in movies before, but I assumed that, like, in the more deep forms of it, like in novels, that would be suggested. But I guess if zombies don't have any kind of consciousness, that wouldn't really make sense. So yeah, it seemed kind of obvious to me, like, why do they want brains? Like, if they're supposedly mindless and have no consciousness, why wouldn't they just be eating everything? So
exactly.
They've got no identity. It seemed like that was a fun way to explore that.
Well, now what I assumed when I heard about this was that you were like into zombies, big time, and then this was just the culmination of a lifelong interest in zombies. From what I've run across in my research about you, you really aren't necessarily a zombie guy.
No, I definitely wouldn't call myself a zombie guy. I'm interested in that subject, and I've definitely seen and absorbed a lot of that mythology just in movies and just pop culture in general.
Sure.
but it wasn't like I just was such a big zombie fan that I thought I want to write a zombie novel, and then I started to figure out what it's going to be about. It was kind of the opposite of that. Like I had this idea for a story, and also this kind of idea for a strange point of view to tell a story from, tinkering around separately, and I thought these actually fit really well together. And I want to kind of explore these ideas of, you know, being disconnected from life and being sort of viewing the human experience from outside, from a dead person. And I thought, you know, this would be a perfect way to do that while not being incredibly heavy and pretentious, because it's, you know, it's a goofy idea, so I can sort of explore these deep themes from a fun standpoint.
So, at least for this foreseeable future, Warm Bodies is going to be your calling card.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
It's funny. I mean, it's definitely not what I ever expected. I mean, when I was writing this novel, I would stop myself every once in a while and think, like, I'm writing a zombie novel. This is unexpected. And then that became the first thing to get published, which was kind of surprising. And then now it's like by far the only thing that I'm known for. I certainly wouldn't say I'm unhappy about it or resentful, but it's surreal and odd to think like this is, because it's really an anomaly in my catalog as far as other stuff that I do. It's nothing else that I've written or plan to write is anything as pop culture-y as this. So
is that right?
It's funny that I am the zombie guy now.